Third one of the series, and we'll be doing the education officer for rural. And so we've got Victoria over here, Emmanuel, Cassie, and Danielle, who are representatives for today. Okay, so each candidate will have 1 minute to promote themselves and just tell you a little about themselves. So we'll start with Victoria at the end here.
Hello, I'm Victoria. I'm a third-year linguistics student. I'm also the president of two societies, Linguistics and Pagan. I'm a course rep, student ambassador, peer mentor, you name it. In my free time, I like to read, mainly fantasy books and stuff like that. I'm also a LARPer, which means live action roleplay. Gamer, nerd in general. If I get this position, I would really like to help research students. There's a really useful system that psychology utilises called Sona. I would like to look into affordable parking for commuters, childcare facilities, and just generally, make sure that you get value for your money.
Thank you very much, Victoria, and we'll go on to Emmanuel now.
Hi, my name is Emmanuel, and I'm an MSc student in the School of Computing and Engineering. I'm an adventurous and enthusiastic person, and I'll be coming out basically because I like to add value to life. I think in my 1 year of my MSc program, I've had a lot of value added to me from the university, and I'd always like to give back to systems I've been a part of. And generally, I love to leave people better than I met them, and leave whatever systems or things I get myself involved with, I like to leave them much better than I met them. And one thing I found, which constitutes what you hear my friends and those on my campaign team say is the Join My Hands campaign, is the fact that I think I've come to understand the purpose for which university was instituted. And a number of persons must have heard me give that speech. We come from a diversity of countries, continents, cultures, and communities. And the all-time searching philosophy was to find unity in this diversity. And for that reason, university was instituted. And that forms the passion and a basis for which I'm going for this position, bringing everybody together and making sure that we all who constitute a diverse community fulfill the core essence for which university was instituted, and that's unity. And by that, I think we'll be able to achieve great heights. And I look forward to bringing that to pass in the course of my stay as an
That's great. Thank you very much, Manuel. And we'll go on to Cassie now.
Hi everyone, I'm Cassie. I'm a final year costume student, and I've been working alongside the Students' Union for a couple of years now as a course rep and more recently as an Inspiring Future leader. I've also been a student ambassador for my school for 3 years, and I've loved every minute. If elected, I would like to promote how diverse our student body is and support the European students and protect things like the Erasmus scheme, which with Brexit is a bit hairy-fairy at the moment. I'd also like to increase the academic support available and as well the awareness, and represent the students' voice, as we are the most important thing in this university.
Okay, thank you very much. And finally, it's Danielle.
Hi everyone.
Yeah.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Try again. Is it me?
Hi everyone, I'm Danielle Snowball. I've been at Huddersfield University for 5 years now. I completed my undergraduate here in psychology. As a commuter student, experiencing the issues that these students face, not being able to attend lectures on time, not being able to be involved with academic societies and with academic representation. I'm now a PhD student in my 2nd year. I also teach as part of this, seeing academic issues from both a student perspective and a staff perspective. I'm also working at the Students' Union as a course rep assistant in the business school, supporting and empowering course reps to have their voice heard and to make change, tackling bigger issues across campus myself, organising events across campus to create unity and belonging amongst students, and regularly meeting with students to listen to their concerns and to act on these to make change. It's this job role that's really started a passion for me for representation, and that's the reason why I'm wanting to be your next education officer.
Okay, so thank you very much, Danielle, and we'll ask you a few questions now. So I'll ask you first, Manuel, and the first question is, I'll ask the questions, then we'll go down the line. So, Emmanuel, what are your visions for enhancing education for the diverse population on campus at the university?
Okay, well, one of the things I included in my manifesto, one of the plans I have that I think I'll just put through as an answer to this question because it cuts across on the undergraduate, the MSc, and the PhD students is the student-to-student mentoring scheme. And basically, for the undergraduates, that's basically getting people in higher levels, say people from third year, or to help those who are just coming in as freshers when they have struggles and things like that. I also had a conversation when doing my background research in the business school, and I think even for the PhD students, when that the mentoring scheme is kind of partially in place, they're giving okay, so they are giving lecturers and doctors to be mentors to them and see them through during the course of their the first stages of their PhD program. But I think sometimes the lecturers and the doctors may not have enough time for them as fellow students who've gone through the same stage they would have or would give to them. For example, also the MSc students, I'm an MSc student, so I'm pushing forward for my PhD. I'll be able to mentor those who've gone through oil and gas engineering. I was a course rep during my stay in school. I was a trained course rep for oil and gas engineering students. I'll be able to point them through how to go through challenges because I've also been through that. So I think it'll give this relaxed platform for students to be able to learn. And if I'd say this, the most things that remain in our memories after school are not really the things that necessarily are said by lecturers or are written on the blackboards or whiteboards or glass boards, but the things that are inscribed in our memory from interactive engagement. And I believe education ought to be interactive, it ought to be engaging, and it leaves a long-lasting impression on our memories other than just listening to lectures from people. And so the student-to-student mentoring scheme is going to bring students together from all aspects, from all angles, and from all disciplines. And I believe it's going to take off the stress from students who are struggling, especially for freshers and those who are just coming in. Thank you.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. And so, Cassie, what are your visions for enhancing education at university?
So, as I mentioned, with Brexit, Erasmus is kind of airy-fairy, and I want to represent European students, as currently there's not that much representation for them on campus, and I want to make sure that they feel that they are being welcomed as much as some of the international students are. I'd also like to liaise with the academic supports available so that students from across campus are feeling supported throughout.
Okay, thank you. And Danielle, your input on that. Yeah, of course. So it's what are your visions for enhancing education for the diverse population on campus university?
Yeah, so my vision is, well, these are my manifesto, and my manifesto has been built from the feedback that I've had from students, looking at group assessment and consistency in group assessment marking. It's not currently the same across courses, and that is something that needs to be worked on. A restructure of the current personal academic tutor system. This is something that's affecting many students across campus and their access to support by academics, so we need to look at how we can improve that. Also looking at career and employability skills, integrating that into every course so that every student has access to those skills in order to move on once they finish university. I also believe things such as diversity, as we've said, are massive in terms of education, and we need to look at how we can improve this, continuing with current projects going on within the Students' Union, such as the BEMBAS scheme, looking at how we can increase representation of women within higher education and what projects we can bring in to do that. Looking at what we can do for EU and international students where English isn't their first language and how we can support those through that academic journey. And also looking at mental health support, because good mental health relates directly to education, and that's how we can get a successful education. So making sure that academics complete mental health awareness training and that students have access to the correct mental health support.
That's fab, thank you very much. And then we got Victoria at the end just here.
Sorry about that. As I mentioned, SONA is a system that I was quite interested in. I used to do psychology before I started studying linguistics. Basically, it's a system that first-year students, for small credits, are required to do either one big study or several small ones. The studies of third years, that is. So first years get to see what they are to expect in their final year, and third years get their participants. And I know that this is only existent in psychology as far as I'm aware, and I would like to implement that across other schools that might benefit from it. Linguistics, for example, could use such a system. Erasmus, as mentioned by Cassie, is currently in danger, and that's something that we need to look into. I would like to promote support that works in other departments, peer mentoring as well, because I've noticed I'm a peer mentor myself, and it seems like a lot of people don't know what that even is, and nobody's making use of that. So it needs to be more out there, including every support that university offers. That's basically it.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. And we're going to go on to a second question now. So I'm aware that many of you have been part of the course representatives for your course or representing individuals. So I'm just wondering, how would you encourage students to speak up on personal issues or issues within the course? And I'll start with Cassie for this one.
So one of the things that my course is very lucky to have is we have something called Cake Wednesday, and we, as a course, are able to meet up and speak to each other, and it's a brilliant opportunity for course reps to get to know the rest of their year as well as other years. And for us, the feedback that we get from opportunities like that, we're able to take to the school boards and things like that, so that things can be changed and students are able to speak up in an environment that they feel safe in.
And Danielle next, please.
So, as I mentioned previously, I am currently a course rep assistant within the business school, and that is essentially my job role, empowering and supporting students to have their voice heard and make change across campus. I believe that whilst the course rep system is improving, there is further that can be done, looking at how we can support student parents, commuter students who wish to be involved with the representation system in order to support them to make the change across campus. And as I've already mentioned, I do organise events weekly to meet with students, to take feedback from them and to make change based on this. Also organising focus groups relating to commuter students, placement students, taking on this feedback and acting on that. And as education officer, I would have a bigger platform in order to act on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Danielle. And we'll go to Victoria.
Well, it's not been an easy task really collecting feedback from fellow students, but I've utilised questionnaires before and found them rather useful. I've gotten quite a lot of them using that method because they're anonymous and they can just put in whatever they're troubled by. Another thing I think that could be helpful is implementing academic societies more to make sure that people, like students from certain courses, have basically a place where they can feel more comfortable discussing with each other, finding out what troubles them, what we can improve. So those are my two main points on that matter.
Okay, thank you. And Emmanuel.
Okay. Drawing from my experience as a course rep, I think the course reps are supposed to be conveying information from students in terms of the challenges they are facing, if I do understand the question correctly.
Yes.
All right. And one of the challenges I found out was even towards the end of my program, I noticed the SU was still trying to get some course reps trained, because some courses don't have representatives and some course reps are not even willing to come for the training, although they've been selected. And I believe this is because there's really no motivation apart from the fact that you're trained. For example, I'm a trained course rep, but I really don't have anything to show for it. So one of the things I have in my manifesto is to drive an incentive-driven, facilitate an incentive-driven platform that encourages people to participate in the course rep program. And by that, the possibility of reaching the other courses that don't have representatives can be, that challenge can be surmounted. Now, putting that side by side with the student-to-student mentoring scheme, when you have student mentors who are in touch with those they are mentoring and they are helping out, I think a larger body of students can be reached in terms of relating and conveying their challenges through course reps or the mentors all the way through the SU and for things to be implemented. So I think if we tie these two together, we'll be able to cover a larger percentage of the student community, and we'll be able to tackle the challenges that they are facing in particular. Thank you.
Okay, some great answers there. Thank you very much, guys. And we'll go on to the third question now. So as we know that black attainment in British universities is quite a long-standing issue, and representation of ethnic minorities. So I'm just wondering, how would you individually go about tackling the subject of black attainment and making sure that every single person has the right opportunity and the same opportunity as your peers or whoever. So I'll start with you, Danielle.
So I do have first-hand experience of the current BIM Ambassador scheme and how that's been working so far. And it is really empowering to see BIM students having their voice heard and recognising issues on campus and implementing campaigns to tackle these. I think as education officer, it would be my position there to support these students and empower them. They can speak from a position of authenticity about the issues that they face, and that's not my position to say. I think we can expand the BIM Ambassador scheme, putting it out into the local community, speaking within schools to find out what issues they're experiencing in terms of BIM students and students wanting to access university, and seeing what more we can do in terms of progressing that.
That's great, thank you very much. And we'll go to Cassie now.
So one of my points on my manifesto is actually that I would like to go into local schools and colleges and promote higher education for all, so that students who are not necessarily expecting that they can go to higher education have those opportunities brought to their attention earlier on, because the university motto is inspiring tomorrow's professionals, and the children of tomorrow will be our tomorrow's professionals.
Okay, thank you. And Emmanuel?
Okay, sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, of
again?
course. So obviously black attainment is quite an issue in all universities across the country. So I'm just wondering, how would you go about tackling that subject?
Okay, well, if you look at every point in my manifesto, it kind of ties together around bringing everybody together. And I think I really personally don't believe anybody should see themselves as minorities. Okay, so the mentoring scheme, for example, it cuts across every nationality. I don't believe there's going to be any barrier of minority or majority to it. And like I do say to people that statistics might prove that you are minority, but that may not necessarily hold true. Take, for example, the lion is minority in terms of numbers in the jungle. It doesn't stop him from being the king of the jungle. And so that doesn't in any way underestimate or undermine the majority if the majority do understand the role they play. For example, the body is made up of 70% water. And so water being the majority plays a great role in the body. And so if everybody understands the purpose for which they stand and they're willing to work together, I believe the issue of minority, whether for the blacks, the Asians, or any of the other groups, will be able to surmount that challenge. And I think that would be relatively a little thing to surmount, looking at what I present in my agenda. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great, because no one at the end of the day is a statistic. So the fact that you're bringing light to that is great. So Victoria, just there.
I've looked into some really nice campaigns that we've had this year and over the past years in university to promote diversity and things like that. And I think that more campaigns could help inform students and make everybody feel included. I also agree with Danielle about going to schools. That is something that student ambassadors were supposed to do at some point, but I've never experienced it so far, and I think that we need to encourage doing that a bit more. And talk to students about what university life is like, what courses we offer. But a big point of my manifesto is making studying in Huddersfield a choice rather than an obligation. Because if you listen around, you'll find a lot of students feeling like they don't belong or that they don't want to be here, and that doesn't help neither them nor the university. So, I'm sorry. So I just want to make sure that people take the time to decide exactly what it is they want to do and come here and be happy that they're here and not just kind of struggling with it because they have to. So,
Yeah, so you've all gone beyond the idea of inclusion, so that's absolutely brilliant. And we'll go on to the last question now. So obviously, all you guys will use the library facilities across campus and resources that are on offer. So I'm just wondering, what are your plans for improving any library services? If you think certain, things need to be on loan, so just what are your plans for improving the library in general for students? And we'll start with Victoria for this one.
Well, across our course, I've run with issues with not having enough copies of online books or physical copies. And I would like to make sure that students know that they can talk to the librarians and just let them know we need more of this, we need more of that. There needs to be some work put into the summon, because as far as we've experienced it, it doesn't quite search that well. So that needs to be improved. But we've not really encountered that many problems with the library resources. So
Okay, thank you, and we'll go to Emmanuel.
Okay, well, from my interaction with students, I think one of the complaints has been certain books not being available in terms of quantity. So let's say it's getting close to a particular deadline and few students get to lend the books and other students don't have access to them. So increasing the number of books in terms of volume to be available to a larger number of students will be one of the things I'll be hoping to work on in the library. And secondly is the fines for library loans, which is currently £2.50 per day. I think looking at the cumulative amount after a period of time, say for example, students who don't stay directly in the University of Huddersfield, they are staying in other places and coming just for school, and somehow they're not able to return the book in any particular day. Looking at the cumulative amount for students, I think we can cut down on that cost and make it a bit easier for students, since not every student might be a worker, not every student might be earning quite high. So I think those two for now are very pressing in terms of students' needs and what I think would be helpful to students. Thank you.
Yeah, and say if you have like a PhD or something or a dissertation, it will add up if you're not going to give that back or whatever, and you need that particular book. So that's great, and we'll go to Cassie now.
Yeah, so I've it was brought to my attention that a lot of books, especially for the arts, are taken out and often requested and need to be taken back about 48 hours later when you haven't even had a chance to use the book. So for me, it would be a case of having a minimum amount of time that you can take it out for before it can be taken back before it can be requested by another student. As well as make students more aware of the facilities that are available online, as there are some amazing facilities that I've only just learned about whilst doing my dissertation, and I would have loved to have known about in my first year, as they would have helped a lot more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and Danielle.
I think in terms of books that are offered by the library, I would have to agree that that is something that can be improved. I've seen from my experience students who have trouble accessing certain books and are having to buy these as part of their course, which also brings in the issue of hidden course costs. I think we could look at improving that and improving the resources that the library offer, as well as looking at the storage facilities that are offered in terms of how we can store our data on computers. I think especially for postgraduate researchers, this is quite a large issue. We can get a lot of data and we have nowhere to store this, also bringing up issues of data protection, things like that. But I think in terms of technology in general, that's a bigger issue that we need to work on as a students' union and as within academia itself, how we can support students through the use of technology, as it's becoming so big recently, and how students can use this to their advantage within their education.
Of course, thank you very much. And that's it from the 4 questions that I just asked you. So I'll bring it over to the audience now. So just bear in mind, though, that the questions must be directed to all the candidates.
My question is actually about mental health, because as a postgraduate student, I've just really noticed that mental health is an increasingly large issue. And I'm just curious what each of you would like to do to help, students who are struggling with their mental health while at university.
If you look at statistics in terms of suicide rates in some countries, take for example India, is because of the pressure that is put on students in terms of academic work, especially when people are not there to help them out. And so there are students out there who really do need help and they need someone to assist them, but there's nobody there to help them. And we talk about things like depression, we talk about things that follow. And I think the student mentoring scheme, taking off that pressure of struggling students, will to a large extent improve the mental health of students, and I think that does cover the mental health for students. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. And does anyone else have any comments on the topic of mental health that we'd like to address at all? Cassie?
Yeah. So yes, mental health is a massive issue, and I do understand that it needs to be faced. And for that, for me, it's a case of making people aware of the support that is available and making that support more accessible to students that have those issues, so that people feel comfortable going to see somebody if they do have something that they need to just talk about. And that will be working alongside, say, the Equalities Officer and the Community Officer to make those sorts of ideas come around. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Victoria?
I agree with Emmanuel here for the peer mentoring system, that it needs to be advertised more and implemented more. Because after all, talking to your peers is kind of more comfortable for more students. if I'm not mistaken, currently, in order to book an appointment for the mental services, you need to go to iPoint. Am I correct? I don't think that this is a good idea. It used to be that you go directly to mental health services and you book them with them. So I think it's just adding stress to, oh, what are they going to think of me? There's people around, they know that I'm booking for this. This needs to change. Also, I think it was last year, there were some de-stress sessions being organised in the SU which were really helpful, like popping bubbles and things like that. That's both fun and does help. And you do meet some other people to talk about stuff like that. So it's cool.
Thank you, Victoria, and we'll finally go to Danielle. Thank you.
Yeah, so one section of my manifesto does actually cover mental health, and these points are that we do need, as Victoria said, direct access to the disability and wellbeing services. I've had personal experience of this, and it can be quite daunting to have to go through iPoint, including having to share those issues with people who aren't counsellors, who aren't people who can support you in that way. So that is something that we definitely need to improve, and I would look at implementing that within the next year as Education Officer. I would also look at the academic support that's offered. A lot of students look to academics to receive this mental health support, but they're not equipped to do that. So if we can make sure that all academics complete mental health awareness training, that means we have people there to support these students who are suffering with mental health issues.
Yeah, of course, because it's such a rising topic right now, so that's great. And any more questions from the audience? Yeah, come to you.
And thank you. I want to ask you a question about PGRs who are on Vice Chancellor Scholarship and are asked to fund themselves to pay their expenses. If they are asked to do 6 hours teaching as well as a part of their bursary scheme, what are you going to do for those students? And if they are going to do 6 hours teaching, which is unpaid in that week, and they have to do 20 hours paid work apart from their research work, how are they going to manage that? It's not possible to do your research work, 6 hour unpaid teaching, and then including all that, you have to do your part-time work. So what are your plans to help PGRs in that regard?
So, as you say, it's unpaid teaching, and if you're giving up time as part of this, you should, in a way, have some form of funding being given to you as part of this. And I would like to try and look into a way of paying the students that are doing this teaching, so that you're not having to spend extra time out of the time that you could be doing personal study, so that you've got that support there. And that's what I'd like to try and look into doing. Thank you.
Okay. Is it on now? Okay, thank you. And Victoria, let's go to you on that question.
I would just agree with Cassie on this one.
Absolutely, no worries. Emmanuel, any comments on extra funding and the pay with regards to work?
Okay, I think I'll be as honest as I would be. That would require an amount of research into that particular topic to understand what you really mean. And I think every leader should understand his jurisdiction. And I don't know if really cutting down costs in terms of PhD programs will be something the education officer can immediately implement without consulting some other persons who will be relevant in driving that. So I think the wisest option first would be to do an interactive research and really understand what you mean by that question. And if it's possible and if it's within the education officer's jurisdiction, why not? That's why we're there. We're there to help students. And if it's within my jurisdiction in my term in office, of course, I'll be willing to look into it and see how to cut down on cost and make funding available for research students. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Manuel. And Danielle, any comments?
Yeah, so I'm fully aware of that. I am a PGI, I am a PhD student. I do have to teach for 6 hours a week, and I do have to work a part-time job in order to cover my living costs, because I get the fee waiver, but I get no extra support. And I do believe massively that's something that we need to look into. I think we need to make those connections with academic staff who are supervising postgraduate researchers, making sure that they're aware of the struggles that their students are facing, how they can support them in terms of working a job, teaching and trying to do PhD work at the same time, because it is massive pressure. And I do also think we need to look into the funding that PGRs can access, and if we can increase that within university, which is something as education officer I'd be very, very willing to do. as an experienced PGR myself.
That sounds great. Thank you very much, guys. And we've got time for one more question. So, continue just here.
Do you think that the current reading lists are diverse enough? And how would you influence academics to represent our student body in their reading lists?
Okay, so we'll start with Danielle just here.
Yeah, so I'm aware within Huddersfield reading lists aren't diverse enough. This is something that BEM ambassadors have picked up on as part of the BEM ambassador scheme as something that needs tackling within university. I know that projects are currently ongoing and that BEM ambassadors are working with academic staff within the schools to increase diversity, as all students should see themselves reflected in their curriculum. I think, again, it means building relationships with academic staff, getting these staff on board to act on these issues, to work with BAME students in order to tackle this. It's about giving BAME students a platform in order to work with those staff, giving them a seat on meetings, to have their voice heard and to make sure that staff are listening.
Okay, thank you. And we'll just go to Cassie now.
So, as Danielle said, it is an ongoing issue and it is being looked at. However, I do believe that that's going to be a case of also liaising with the library to make the books in the library more diverse, and so that students are aware of where these sections are, so that people know where to go to, as all of the books on a reading list should be within the university library so that they're accessible. And if they're not there, does that mean that the library services aren't being looked at first? Thank you.
Okay, and Emmanuel?
Okay, as course reps, we attended a particular program. It's called Educating Huddersfield, and that was one of the issues that we really talked about extensively. And I think for a start, it will be encouraging other students to take part in the BAME movement. And by so doing, we are expanding the BAME movement, we're expanding the impact that the BAME movement in terms of diversifying our library in terms of what is there. So it will be more or less encouraging other students to take part in the BAME movement, and also working together, like my other colleagues have mentioned, working together with the library and making sure that these changes, as student voice is coming out, are implemented.
Of course, thank you. And Victoria?
Sorry, I needed a minute to think about this. I agree with most points that the others have mentioned so far. BAME is already working to tackle those issues, but encouraging more students to get involved in this is definitely a good point. I think, as I mentioned before, having more events to promote diversity, maybe include staff into that, would help, but that's as much thought as I've given it so far. I need to do more research on this point.
Okay, thank you very much, guys, and that's it from audience participation, but then we'll go on to you guys. So it's basically 1 minute just to sell yourself and tell us why you think you are the best candidate for the job. And we'll start with you, Danielle.
Yes, so as I've previously mentioned, I've been an undergraduate at Huddersfield. I'm currently a postgraduate at Huddersfield studying my PhD. I have a wide range of experience in issues that students are facing: commuter students, students living in Huddersfield, undergraduate students, postgraduate researchers, and that's what I can bring to the education officer role. I've also worked in the Students' Union, I've worked as a course rep assistant, I've supported students already and empowered them to make change across campus. I've got a proven record of doing this, and that position has given me a lot of experience. I wouldn't be putting myself forward for the education officer role if I didn't know that I could do it, and that's why you should vote for Danielle Snowball to be your next education officer.
Okay, thank you. And it's I missed one thing out, so it's just one thing that makes you the best candidate for the job. So then we'll go to Cassie.
As previously mentioned, I have been a course rep, so I've seen how the education system at Huddersfield has changed over the last few years, and I believe that together we can make it better.
Simple and sweet. And Emmanuel?
Okay, well, I also would be drawing from my experience as a trained course rep, of course, to make things better. And I think one thing that will distinguish me from the rest is I know two things for me. One is vision, the ability to see what your contemporaries might not immediately see. But the second thing is purpose. And because when you have vision and there's no purpose, you live in, it's more or less an illusion. So you see many leaders come up and they give a good plan in terms of what they want to do, but without the right concept of the purpose for that thing, I believe it will only be an illusion, so they are unable to follow through on that plan. So what's the purpose of university? Is working together, like I've mentioned, unity in diversity, and that's the passion that drives the Take My Hands campaign. And most importantly would be the fact that I've gotten responses from students in terms of student union not engaging, not really engaging students, like not going out there and talking to students and being in touch with students. I'm willing to go that far. I know many people will not be willing to go that far because it's demanding, but I'm also willing to go that far. And lastly would be the fact that I'm not just wanting to go and be a voice for the students, but be a voice with the students, because if you're detached from the people you're speaking for, I believe you'll be able to achieve less compared to if you're working with people. Say, for example, for any of the things that I want to implement, every student's voice is supposed to count in terms of surveys, in terms of statistics. What are the students saying? So I'm not just going there to be an education officer in terms of being a voice for the students, but a voice with the students. And I believe together, we as a prestigious university, we can make it happen. Thank you.
That sounds brilliant, thank you. And Victoria, just at the far end.
Well, as a course rep myself, I feel like I have been rather successful in that role. Within 1 month, I was course rep of the month. I had already made change, and I keep making change for my course and my fellow students. And if I have to be honest, I see the education officer role as kind of an extension to the course rep role, just representing students from across the entire university rather than just one course. And I love talking to people. I like knowing what they want to put forward, what they want of the education. And I want to make it a choice. I want to make it a good choice for everybody to have as good time as I have had in this university. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I like how you've all highlighted that one-to-one sort of relationship as opposed to just being like a representative body. So that's really good. And that's all from me. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for coming. And this is all from the candidates. And tomorrow we've got the Equalities Officer candidate role. That'll be hosted at lunchtime. And then at 5:30 p.m. we have the President's Question Time. And just a reminder that voting will open online on February the 12th. And the results will be announced next Thursday at the Zetlands. So get voting, and if you like what you see, just vote. Thank you very much. Cheers.